I love it. I love watching it every single day, and through all the challenges and all the guilt of everything I may have done wrong, they turn out okay, you know? And so I'm a very proud mom for both my kids, the kid with food allergies and the one without.
Welcome to the Don't Feed the Fear podcast, where we dive into the complex world of food allergy anxiety. I'm your host, Dr. Amanda Whitehouse, food allergy anxiety psychologist and food allergy mom. Whether you're dealing with allergies yourself or supporting someone who is, join us for an empathetic and informative journey toward food allergy calm and confidence. Welcome back to Don't Feed the Fear for our spring season. I don't want to talk about it. And today, I am honored to be joined for this conversation about food allergy mom, guilt, shame, regret, and fear by someone who wears all the hats in the food allergy community. Dr. Ruchi Gupta is a professor of pediatrics and medicine at Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine. She's an attending clinician at Ann and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago, and she is the founding director of the Center for Food Allergy and Asthma Research. Dr. Gupta is world-renowned for her groundbreaking research in food allergy and asthma epidemiology, particularly her research on the prevalence of pediatric and adult food allergy in the United States. She's also the author of the books The Food Allergy Experience and Food Without Fear, and numerous peer-reviewed research articles which have changed the landscape of food allergy. I know that most of you listening are food allergy moms, and just like I did, you will feel so seen in this conversation with someone who knows as much as anyone else about food allergies and yet faces the same struggles and stress that we all do as food allergy moms. I was excited when I asked you what you wanted to talk about, and you said motherhood. Yes. I don't know if everyone knows this about you, even though you say it often, that you're an allergy mom too. So many of us want to hear you talk about that because, as you know, we're struggling and we hold you up on this pedestal as this superhero of food allergies, but you're living it with us too. So thank you for being willing to share that with us.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that is my first and foremost, most proud role, right? As being a mom. And so most important role you can have. And so I so appreciate you wanting to even talk about that, because that's always just a sidebar, even though it is your world. It's everything you do revolves around that role and protecting your child and making sure they can live their fullest life with their allergy. So
it's so central. Yes, of course. And I find it especially interesting about you. A lot of us, myself included, we're just drawn to whatever we're dealing with. And for you, that happened backwards, right? You finished medical school. Then tell me why you were drawn to public health and then food allergies before you even were a food allergy mom.
Sure. So in medical school, I found myself really leaning into things outside of my classwork. I liked developing programs and, finding things that were issues and doing something about it. I remember in the ER, I'd see domestic violence patients and I wouldn't even know what to say and I wasn't trained. And so my first grant was, can we create some kind of a resource for medical students so they know what to say when they go in there and what things they can offer. And so, I saw, and then I did a whole thing for high school students for, trying to understand medicine and taking in diseased hearts and lungs. And I don't know, I've always been drawn to more towards where are the holes and how do we fix it, and what can I do? And so in residency, I was really fortunate. I did pediatrics, and in residency, I was at an institution. It was in Seattle, and they did a lot of health services or outcomes research. So I had done some basic science research and I enjoyed it, but I just didn't think it was my thing. And so then after I got a little bit of the bug in residency, because I would see all these patients come in with asthma, and I noticed that some of them would just keep coming back to the hospital, keep coming back, and others would be doing okay. And I was giving them the same meds. So really trying to understand, patient-centered care, like what are we missing in asthma? So then I went to Boston, did my fellowship, got a master's in public health at the Harvard School of Public Health, and then moved to Chicago and wanted to do work in asthma disparities. And then soon after, I think the same year or the next year, I met a family who had 2 young kids with food allergy. And these parents were just advocates and talking to me about how little we know about food allergy. So, as a young, new researcher, I looked into food allergy, and it was true. We knew so little. So I was like, okay, let me try my hand at this and see if I can help fill this hole. And it was a very big hole that we're still filling. But some of the first things I discovered were that, like, people didn't understand food allergies, and so really doing knowledge, attitudes, beliefs. What do people think they are? And then getting into prevalence, right? So then it was, okay, we don't even know the disease burden. And so that became my next big thing. Like, let's at least see what it looks like on a public health level. And so here I am doing this. And about 3 years into it, my son, who loved PB&J and was home eating it and playing with my 1-year-old daughter, touched her, played with her, got it in her mouth, and then she broke out into hives and threw up, and then I became a food allergy mom. And that was so eye-opening to me, because it was just, I'd been studying it. I talked to all these parents, and I had even done a study where we looked at moms versus dads and how they handle their food allergy. And, so I had these in-depth conversations with so many parents. And so all of it comes rushing back to you, now that's me, and that's my world. So yeah, that's how it started. So it was a little bit backwards, but I'm grateful because I can do something about it, and I love talking to people like you and your community, because I can take what you tell me back to the lab, and I can actually impact change. And I hope the whole community feels they can, through us, through the center, because that is our ultimate goal. How do we make our lives better as we search for a cure and, work on prevention, but day-to-day lives, because food is a part of everything we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, then with living our lives, that can bring the anxiety, the trauma, the fear into a part of everything that we do, right? Not just our meals. So I'm so glad that you are acknowledging the importance of that in your work and when you're speaking, because it's constant. It's never relenting.
No, never. I tell you, like, I tell this story all the time. I'm like, and I actually told it to a group of researchers one time, and somebody came up to me after and was like, "Well, I'm really worried about you." And I'm like, "Oh my God, you should be worried about every one of your patients." Like, this is real. I want to tell my real story, because it is, your child is eating multiple times a day, and there's unique challenges when they're young.
Mhm.
And then, of course, as they get older and want to become more independent, other unique challenges, like the challenges keep changing, but food is always going to be there. So how that worry as a parent never goes away. And understanding those challenges and having a community that you can trust and rely on. And so thank you so much, Amanda, for doing this, because um, putting stories, I think once people feel like, well, I'm not alone, and people have done this before me, and they are here to support me and lift me up through this, I think it helps so much. Even for me, when I became part of the community, I joined our local support group, and I learned tricks of the trade from more experienced moms on things that I should and shouldn't be doing. So every single one of us can learn from each other.
Absolutely. I say that all the time. I learned so much from those moms that I first connected with in the very beginning when I didn't know anything. And they just, whether online or in person, kind of throw their arms around you and say, here's how to do this, and ask your doctor this. And it's that support, that belonging, that we didn't want to be a part of that club, and we are. And so now we belong, but the sense of belonging helps.
Yes, definitely.
Going back to that moment you described when your son had the peanut butter sandwich and your daughter had her first reaction, when that fight or flight kicks in and our nervous system takes over, it hijacks that higher order thinking in our brains.
Totally. It's a shock, right? And you're getting so much information all at once and taking it all in, and it's scary. Now all of a sudden your life is going to change drastically, right?
Mhm.
You're going to have to watch everything that your child eats, everything in your home, everything they're exposed to. It is a very difficult time. And I think at that first diagnosis is what we work on a lot on. How do we support families, right? How do we get them the information immediately and make sure they have a support group set up? But you can't do that for everyone. But the guilt question is great because I think as moms, everything is about guilt, right? For everything I hear, I have a comic. One of the first books we wrote, we had all these comics in it, and one of the comics is uh, a doctor is telling a mom, "You ate peanuts when you were pregnant. You caused your child's food allergy. You didn't eat peanuts when you were pregnant. You caused your child's food allergy."
Yes.
I
We
think
can't win.
it's like you can't win. No. And I get asked that so much. Oh my gosh, is it something I did? Is it because I did or didn't eat this? And I feel that now with all the research I'm doing and others are doing, and we're realizing, like, when my daughter had her eczema when she was really young, and I was nursing her, and I'm eating nuts because they're healthy snack foods, and easy when you're a busy new mom, and didn't even think that I'm eating these nuts and the proteins falling onto her skin and things we didn't know. And I'll give you my best guilt story. Is the New York Times called me when the New England Journal article came out about LEAP and prevention, and I was so excited. They were interviewing me, and I told them what I thought about it. And then at the end of the article, it said, "And Dr. Gupta is slapping herself on her wrist for not introducing peanut products to her own daughter earlier." And I'm like, oh my.
Oh, no.
So for all the moms out there, just guilt, we got to let go of guilt. It's just nothing is your fault. And we got to remember we're all doing the best we can with what we know.
Yeah.
And I try to tell myself that. It doesn't mean it'll take it away, but the more people support you in that, just we're doing the best we can with what we know.
Right.
Um, and at that time, we didn't know, and now we know a little bit better. But there's no guilt to this. And so many times, I'm sure all of us have been in those situations where we allowed our child to eat something and then they had a reaction, or, we could have prevented it if we would have, read this or that, or looked 3 more times, or, and then you just feel horrible for so long. But, um, you know, we're doing the best we can with what we know and what we have at the moment.
Yeah. On that note, because I'm one of those folks that LEAP study wasn't out quite in time for me to early introduce, right? In your book, you talk about even with early introduction, we don't prevent all of the allergies, correct? It helps, but our kids might have had the allergies either way. We didn't cause them, right?
Didn't cause them. No, no, it does not prevent all allergies. It doesn't prevent allergies in everyone, so it can prevent in a subpopulation. So it is important to do, but no, it's not going to prevent everyone in every allergy. There's genetics that play in. There's so many other factors, environment, microbiome. We're learning more and more about all the multitude of factors that go into developing a food allergy. So, yes, no guilt, even if you did introduce early. you know.
Yeah. Well,
And for all those moms, I mean, I do want to say, what's so great. I mean, I've been in this field now 20 years. My daughter's 18 and in college. And one thing I can say that's just so beautiful is we do have treatments now. We do have prevention. We do have ways to make life better. And so if you are a mom whose infant has developed some allergies, there are ways that potentially early in life we can reverse it with treatment. So just know that things are moving rapidly, and we can potentially change the course. And even if you have older kids like mine, I want moms to know that, after hearing all of this, and all of us being talking about all the difficulties and with food allergy, we actually surveyed young adults and said, what good has come out of your food allergy? And it was beautiful. So, kids said that they advocate for themselves more, and for others. So they have found their voice and they're able to speak up, and not only about their food allergy, but other things. And the other thing that was really high was they have more empathy for others with conditions. And everybody's got something, right? So I was thinking, the two big things, if you wanted to instill in your child, it would be empathy and advocacy. And those are two skills that kids do learn from food allergy. And then the third one was really funny. They eat healthier because they actually read labels.
Right. Which is
Like,
also quite important, right? For us to know what's in our food and what we're putting in our bodies.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I talk about that a lot with my clients within the concept of post-traumatic growth, because like you said, everyone has a challenge. We
Yeah.
don't always see it. It looks like everyone else's lives are perfect, but everyone has something. So if this is the one that I've got and that's what comes out of it, and it's something that's treatable and there are options,
Yeah.
I'll keep it.
Yes.
While we're on the topic of treatments, are you comfortable talking about your stance as a food allergy mom with an older child, obviously, who missed those early years potentially of OIT? But have you encouraged her, or have you talked about treatment options for her at her age and what that might look like?
Absolutely. Yes. And I really do want to emphasize that, like, with my daughter, you should see us talk.
Have her on sometime.
I know you should have us on, and
Would
it would
love
be
to.
fun banter, for sure, because all of a sudden I am purely mom and I am no longer the expert, and I am not supposed to act like an expert. And we probably have the same conversations everyone listening has. So it's really fun and fascinating, to observe on the other side. When I talk to all my patients, I'm a totally, looked at in a very different way
Of course.
than my daughter. So with my daughter, we have talked about treatments for years. She, um, fortunately, she had peanuts, tree nuts, and egg. She grew out of egg, which, to everyone listening, if your child has some of these really hard ones to avoid, like egg and milk, just know we do have like egg ladders and milk ladders where you start with baked and you can work up. I just want to encourage everyone listening that there are new treatments to be aware of. If you have, similar to my daughter, peanuts, tree nuts, some of the harder ones that kids don't grow out of as easily, it is, you know, possible to do OIT. Now we know more about sublingual immunotherapy, and now we have the first FDA-approved biologic, omalizumab or Xolair. So those are great treatment options, and it really is patient-centered. So it's you and your child. My daughter, when she was in high school, is when all of this started coming out. And high school is also when kids start risk taking and going out to eat and parties and with their friends, and um, really assessing, their desire and their, putting themselves in danger. OIT was challenging because my daughter is also an athlete. So you have to think about things like that. What does this mean? When will you take your doses? So she was also in a school which was nut free, at least the cafeteria food. So she felt relatively safe. Now, if your child has multiple food allergies and other things, sesame, things you can't avoid, so everyone's story is different, right? And so you have to look at your full picture and decide. And I had access, but she was like, I'm good. I'm avoiding. I feel okay. And I don't want to like deal with this with practices and games and all. So we didn't do that. Then omalizumab was released, just February of last year, and I started bringing that up with her. And she's like, but I'm not having an issue right now. And she was going to a college, and her college happens, the whole college is nut free. It's one of the first ones that was ever nut free. Her entire cafeteria is free of all nuts. And it was such a safe place for her. And so I bring it up every time she's coming home tomorrow. I bring it up again because honestly, she's like, it'll just make you feel better. I'm like, yes, that's really important. But she's an adult now, and she needs to decide her own risk. I mean, The story I'll tell you is we went to a family wedding, which was a really big Indian wedding, and they had amazing food. And it just broke my heart because she was going to Starbucks, the Starbucks in the hotel, and eating that, breakfast, lunch, and dinner while we're all raving about how good the food is. And it was so hard. And this is where I was not like, anything will allow her to eat it right now. But those kind of things, those quality of life things where everyone's like chowing down and you're having, your same every day egg bites in the morning. Like it's like, I like, oh my goodness. It's very heartbreaking. And so we actually got the chef because the family is like, let's fix this. There's got to be some of this without nuts. Chef comes out and tells her like these couple foods are safe for you. She gets so excited and she chows down and she's like, oh my God, this is so delicious. I love it. And then like a couple minutes later, tingling starts, throat starts getting tight. And I just couldn't believe we were in this situation again, and here we did everything possible. I was feeling bad. I'm like, can we check with the chef? Can we try to let you eat properly? And she had an allergic reaction, had to take epinephrine. It was okay, after the epinephrine. So epinephrine early, another big lesson.
How powerful, honestly, you and I both, we live, eat,
Yeah.
sleep, and breathe it every day. But to hear you say that it does still happen. And even your child had this happen, and that we just have to not be afraid to use that epinephrine immediately. People are still so afraid of it.
So afraid. Please don't be afraid. Oh my God. I can tell you it reversed her symptoms within minutes. Like all her symptoms were gone. In a night that, may not have ended terribly, but, normally she'll throw up a couple times and she will have that stomach pain and throat closing feeling, just gone. So please, don't fear it. But immediately what sets into me, guilt. Like here, why did I even trust it? Like I should have known better. She could eat her whatever, like sandwich for the 10th time, but at least she would have been safe. But I took a risk too by trusting the chef, in a place where I know potentially could have a lot of nuts. So again, the guilt sets right back in, immediately my heart sinks to how stupid am I? Like of all people in the world, shouldn't I know better? So for me to admit this to all of you, like just know we're all doing the best. We want the best for our kids. I mean, I was just trying to get her a meal that she would enjoy. And then all of a sudden a reaction. But yes, use that epinephrine. She was better immediately. She got to, not suffer through the sequela of a reaction.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I can feel the weight of my own son's reactions and our own experiences when you talk about it, because it just hangs there and weighs on us so heavily. So I really appreciate you being willing to talk about it.
Of course. I mean, we're all real people and, we have to share our vulnerabilities because no one should put, first of all, me on any kind of pedestal, but just know I deal with the exact same issues and we're all trying to make the best decision in that moment, like what is right, what is wrong, what should we do? And, we make mistakes. We're human. So
Another thing I think it illustrates that's difficult and powerful for all of us to hear is that here, even one of the biggest voices in the food allergy world, navigating things with family. Here's a family wedding. Can she eat here? You're still dealing with things like that too. Then we all do that tracing it back thing and problem solving. Do you mind me asking, were you able to figure out what happened with the food that ended up causing the reaction, or didn't you get an answer?
no, we never got an answer. I have tried in the past, like, but at this point, you also are also balancing, like, this is a family wedding. I don't want to ask the family, like, they're in the middle of their kid getting married. And then, they had done enough to get me the chef. And then I couldn't find the chef, right? They're somewhere in the back. And so then I have to go back to the family and ask, well, why are you asking? Well, my daughter's having an allergic reaction. And, taking the focus. And I think we've all been there. Like, do you take the focus off of what's like it's their wedding.
Right.
Like, yeah, like, oh. And then it's like my daughter, and so for that case, I never got to go all the way back. But the couple times I have, and like I'm sure other parents have. I remember we were on vacation and we were at a restaurant, and again, my stupidity is you try to let your child live their fullest life, and you're trying. Um, in this restaurant, they had everything labeled, everything, and they ask right when you walk in. They put a card on your table. Everything on the menu is labeled. You tell your waiter, like we did every single step, but it was a Chinese restaurant, but everything was labeled. So I'm like 100% sure you can make this without nuts. And it had no nuts on the menu. All of a sudden it comes out and it's full of nuts. And but the nuts were all on the bottom. It was like, and then she took just one bite, and she didn't even eat a nut, but she took a bite and she started feeling it. And that restaurant, I remember, I just lost it. I'm like, oh my God, you have all these precautions, and we did every single one, and she still had a reaction. What happened? Or you try really hard, but in the end, and then another restaurant where they're like, no, there's absolutely nothing in it. I don't know what she reacted to. I'm like, there had to be, and so I've gotten that a lot. Well, no, I don't know what she must have another allergy. Like,
Mhm.
no, I'm an expert in this, but okay. But she's like, please don't use do you know who I
I
am?
was going to say, do you say it? Because it would be really hard not to.
I know. Every time we go to a restaurant and they ask, she's like, "Don't you dare, mom," because they'll be like, "Do you have any food allergies I should be aware?" I'm like, "No, but thank you so much for asking." And she's like, "Stop doing that." She's like, "Don't you tell them. This is what I do for a living." Like, okay.
Oh.
So it's fun. Our lives are entertaining.
It keeps us on our toes, doesn't it? Well, and I
Yes.
think the way you're describing your daughter, obviously I don't know her, but you mentioned earlier when you're talking about treatments, she said, I'm fine. So I think as parents, we worry, and as moms,
Yeah.
we're so afraid that they're just being completely destroyed by this, when really, I think we carry a lot and they're
Yeah.
not necessarily as distressed as we are. Would you agree, both at home and in your work?
Yeah, I do. I do agree. I think, in different phases of their lives, I think it's important for us. I think a lot of our distress can become their distress. And I learned that. And you probably know this better than anyone.
Well,
Um,
knowing it and changing it are two different things,
are two
right?
different things. Yes. And I remember just in this area, because I know everything, I've seen so many patients. And I remember when she was young, she was very dependent on me. Like if I would travel, she would get very upset and scared. And I realized I was being too much of a protector for her, and she needed to learn. And I remember she would hand me things to check, and I started fake pretending like it didn't have something in it. Obviously, observing her very carefully. I'm like, I don't see it. I think you're okay, but can you double check? And so then it would make her read it. She's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Just please, because my eyes, I'm getting old." And so she would double check. She's like, "Mom, oh my God, you almost made me eat the." And I just be like, "Okay, thank God. All right, cool." I mean, I would have pulled it right out of her
Right,
hand,
of
but
course.
like trying to play like I don't really know, and you are the expert, you are managing your food allergy, or because of, my world in this, that every time we'd go somewhere, it would be an expectation I would tell the waiter, and in the end, I would, no, I'm not me, like I don't, it's got to be you. You got to start self advocating and feel like you can take care of yourself. And so a lot of that happened early on. And then the fear and anxiety. So, like you said, we have to change. We have to hand over to them. And what I heard from mom and dads. Let me tell you, because this was really interesting to me. When I did a focus group with moms, the moms were like, I just want to protect my child, which we all do, and keep them safe. And a lot of moms would say, and they had issues with the dad because the dad was not as careful. And so then I brought in all the dads, and I'm like, we're doing a focus group with you guys, and they're like, well, we protect them too. We just want to live to their full potential. We want to push them as far as much as we can to be safe, but also be able to do as much as they can, So it was really, really interesting because they were both cared a ton. It was just how they were expressing it. And so I learned like one is protection. I'm going to keep you with me and we're going to be safe. And the other is, okay, push you to self advocate to be able to feel safe around food, even with your allergens in it, because you're never going to live in a world where you're not going to be in the same room or the same area. So, how do we remove that anxiety, And first, I have to remove it from myself, and then I have to remove it for you. So, I think as you go through life, just being aware of where they are, and once they become confident, you see that they are becoming independent and responsible. They become very responsible. And if they're not, then that's when you need to have these discussions. But also, no guilt. Like if a reaction happens, they just need to know how to manage it
Right.
because it's hard to avoid.
Right, which is one thing that I see a lot where there's so much emphasis on avoiding and doing the right thing that when a reaction happens, a lot of kids will hide the reaction for fear of the parent's response to it. Not
Yeah.
even fear of the epinephrine, just I don't want to upset or scare or get in trouble or whatever the emotional reaction they're anticipating might be.
Yeah. And that is so important, like to make sure a child feels completely safe in saying they're having an allergic reaction. And there is no guilt or blame or, you may have eaten the wrong thing. It's totally fine. But it is so that I think is the most important piece is to make sure that if a reaction happens, they know exactly what to do and are very confident doing it. And one of the things that I find very helpful is role playing. Like we just play different scenarios that happen, at school, even if someone's eating something, like how do you say, oh, you're eating that and you're right next to me. Is it, I'm moving a little bit farther away, not because I don't like you, like what words do you use? What are the words? Because like you said, you freeze in those moments, and you don't know exactly what to say. Even as a mom, like we would always call it the stare. Like Ria would be like, not sure, right? She's like, I'm not, I feel a little funny. And then I would just stare.
Mhm.
She's like, stop staring at me. And I'm like, oh,
Right.
like watching for any hive to pop out or what she's doing. And so I was like, let's just role play reactions. And then what is the right thing for me to say? And what is the right, like, let's just pretend, because the more you practice something, the more
Yes.
it's second nature when it actually happens.
Yes.
It's never perfect, but it's better.
Yes. I'm sure you included this part, but I always encourage people to tag on practicing using the epinephrine. Not just how do I do this, but tag on imagined stress and anxiety and fear, and moving into using the epinephrine to relieve that is very
Yes.
different from, oh, hey, let's play silly, which is also good and practice using this, but it's
Yes.
different when you tie it to that stress, right?
100%. In fact, one of the best things we did, I think, was have friends over and go through a scenario and then actually use real epinephrine on grapefruits because they need to see how it works, right? Because everyone gets so scared of it. But once you pop it into a grapefruit, like that's your leg and now you are using it, and that's how easy it is. And that's how you never see the needle, it takes seconds. It's not a big deal, then I think that encourages them to feel safe using it when they're actually in the situation. So I'm so glad you brought that up. Very, very important. And now we have the nasal too, you know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we have a sublingual coming. So all of that I think is going to get even easier,
Yeah.
hopefully for families and kids.
Agreed. I just had a conversation before I logged on with you with my son about we can sit down and look at and talk about all these options that there are going to be and which one is the right one for you, which is so empowering.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. And when my daughter was in that situation, she has both. She has the auto injector and she has the nasal. And I'm like, what do you want? Like,
Yeah. In the moment for
yeah,
her to choose which one. Yeah.
yeah. And then she chose one, she did it, she felt better and empowered her to, you can do this on your own, and pick what you want to do, and just do it right away.
Yes.
Yes.
Speaking of empowering our kids, another hole that I think there is, and they have a conversation scheduled with Dr. Sicherer, but I want you to weigh in on this too, about when kids get to that age of relationships and dating and kissing and physical intimacy, and they do not want, especially their mothers, to talk to them about it. As medical professionals, mental health professionals, moms, how do we all get that information in our kids' heads that they need to have about it?
Yes. So, as kids, get to their teen years, I think having these conversations are so critical. And really discussing it. It's so challenging because I we have so many young adults that work with us, so many high schoolers, so many college students. And, we talk to all of them, like, what do you do? And how do you navigate? And, just my own daughter. But understanding that it's pressure enough to like start dating someone or liking someone, let alone making it very clear that you have a life threatening food allergy and this is very important to you. So I think early on, again, having a conversation about, those scenarios and what you would do, everything, going to a party, like what could be in the food. A lot of those things are not labeled, what are in the drinks, what's going on there, what should you consider safe and what could be dangerous. And, navigating all of that is a real challenge. And so I guess my advice would be definitely with their allergist. I think that's a great person, or even their generalist, to sit down and make sure they know from them, but anyone they're comfortable with. But as a parent, having those conversations. And then honestly, again, I always go back to role playing because I think it's just so nice to be able to figure out the right words that you would use to explain, food allergies. And if I'm going to kiss you, you can't have eaten this food, for at least a day and have brushed your teeth a couple times between that. And what I'm learning is if you put it into a fun, kind of jovial, friendly way, everybody gets it, and they understand. And if they really like you, you'll know, and that's kind of important. So
Right.
yes, so I do think it's possible, and I do think the greatest thing I think today versus 20 years ago when I started is they're very common now. And, 10% of kids going to college have a food allergy. So we're talking a lot of kids. So I don't think it comes as a big surprise or what do you have or why or what, like most people get it. I mean, most restaurants now ask, which is such a wonderful thing. So I think our system and our awareness is changing for the better. And it's all supporting these kids who are going into those scenarios. I also think, one of the biggest things we learned is that kids, it's having friends that know and support you is really important. That's why I said, like, even in high school, bringing in a couple of friends, playing around with a grapefruit and a scenario, like they don't mind it, they actually learn a lot and appreciate it, and so doing a little bit of that, making a couple of their friends really aware of what a food allergy is and what it can do and what they should do in an emergency really helps the kid themselves. And even those young adults told us that the biggest thing that helps them is having friends that support them. Harder for guys. So I don't know how your son is doing, but the young men I know have found it more challenging. I had a young adult out of college who came and worked with me, and he didn't even tell me he had a food allergy. And then one day he accidentally ate a kale chip, but it had cashew on it, and he came to my office red, asking like, "Can I talk to you?" Having an allergic reaction, and then it was so severe. And then of course he forgot his epinephrine because he switched bags. And so we walked him to the emergency room, which was, down the hall and or down the street. and he got epinephrine, but both him and I wrote a whole editorial on this, our experience and helping young people understand, just disclose, just let, you're working in a food allergy center.
Right. I was just imagining there being epinephrine in all shapes and sizes laying around everywhere there.
Now there is. Now I stock the office. I am like, all right, that taught me that I should have stock epinephrine just in my office. So now if you come to my office and have anaphylaxis, I got you covered.
Good to know. Another thing related to parenting and mothers, many of the moms I've worked with have had a change with their own food allergies associated with a pregnancy. I lost food allergies. Many women gain food allergies or other food intolerances. Can you tell us a little bit more? That is a thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's so a thing. And I'm so glad you brought that up because our adult study was so interesting because what we found, which shocked me, is that 50% of adults with food allergies said they developed a new food allergy as an adult.
Mhm.
And so, we always think of it as a childhood thing, but oh no, I mean, there are so many adults developing new food allergies. When we look at why, what is the turn on switch in adults? Some of the things we definitely see signals with our hormones. So hormonal changes, you see it in puberty, you see it in pregnancy, and you see it in menopause. You see either a turn on or a turn off of that switch. So you do see new food allergies developing, and hormones can be a factor in that. Other things that can be a factor that we discovered were some kind of illness, something that triggers your immune system in one way or the other. So a viral or bacterial infection um, around that time period, a change in your environment. Did you move or change locations or places? So we're learning more and more. We don't have it, solidified yet, but the microbiome also holds a lot with that, right? So the microbiome is very powerful, and things that you do to change that microbiome and impact it can have an impact on your food allergies. So learning more and more every day, but that is a real thing, and it definitely does happen.
This is probably an impossible question. We know about microbiome, we know about hygiene hypothesis, but how close are we to actually understanding fully? What's your best guess as one of the most informed people out there on this?
Stopping. I mean, I told you that's my dream, right?
Mhm.
Like, so I think we're on the right track. We are preventing food allergies with early intervention. I think honestly, as a pediatrician too, I think we medicalize too much, and sometimes we push the pendulum too far, right? So everyone's getting stuff. We don't know why. We don't know why food allergies are increasing. Okay, don't feed your kid peanut. Space out your food 3 to 5 days between introducing a food to make sure they don't have a reaction. You know, all the other new things, the increased hygiene for newborns, the increase in antibiotics and C-sections, like all these things that we're doing to infants, where we're just not letting them be babies, and they're so resilient, And so what we're trying to do is not go completely back, but somewhere in the middle where, let's try to, we're doing things. C-sections are required in most cases. And so how do we get that? We're doing swabs where we can get that bacteria put back on those babies. We are decreasing the amount of antibiotics we give them for unnecessary reasons. If we have to, we have to. But even if we have to, now we're finding replacements. How do you replace that gut microbiome quickly, so that it can be a healthy gut microbiome even after they have to take something. Hygienes. I am such a big advocate for less cleansers. Babies are clean. They don't need, that beautiful vernix that comes on babies. We just wipe it off away, and it's a protection, So I think going back a little, don't need to wait 3 to 5 days between introducing a food. If they're going to have a reaction, it usually happens pretty immediately, So, feed diversity, we know, is really, really important. Don't be scared of food. Like, how did we used to eat? Whatever the house was eating, kind of mesh it up and stick it in a baby's mouth.
Right,
So
right.
we don't have to go back to that, but let's not be as medicalized as we are because of the fear we had. So I think early introduction, I think protecting an infant's skin is important. Obviously, there's genetic pieces, but I think the sooner we discover those food allergies too, we have we are discovering ways to then flip it and turn it around. We've had so many infants. We're doing a large study, a prevention study, where we're introducing 8 foods early to infants. And one thing we have found is the ones that do develop food allergies, because they were going to anyway, early, we put them on a program for OIT, like very, very slow increase. And we do see, and then sometimes you can use omalizumab with it so that they don't react. So we're trying different things, but we are finding we can reverse it. And then in a year or two, they are able to eat freely and their IgEs are dropped. So they're not every kid. So there's always a population that we're like, how do we fix it? But so many we are able to, because babies are so resilient, their immune systems are resilient. And so the earlier you notice and get treatment, I do think we're moving from my big 8% numbers. We'll be able to drop them, hopefully, in my lifetime. Is my goal. Maybe not to zero, but significantly less.
Well, and speaking of that, in your numbers that just absolutely shed a really important light on what was going on. I think a lot of us moms, we are guilty, we are stressed, we're ashamed of what we view as our mistakes, but we're also mad because this is an epidemic.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I do think the world is catching on.
Okay.
We are like, there's the European conference and there's so much food allergy being talked about, in Europe and in Australia, definitely. Some of the Asian countries, it's very interesting what we're learning. Food allergy is a thing, but it is still a very small thing. And I'm really trying to crack that. Like, what is protective? We also see with immigration. So, for example, myself, right? I was moved to the US when I was 2 years old. So I got my first 2 years there. I have no allergies, no atopy whatsoever. Same with my husband. He moved very early in life and had nothing. And then both our kids are highly atopic. So what was the protection? So then I went back and I was like, okay, let's look at kids there now, because they're modernized now. They do things the same way we do. They've got the, fast food chains from the US now. But still we see no signal. And it is so fascinating to me to better understand. So now we're looking at the gut microbiome. Like, what are we missing here that other countries or cultures may have? So I think the world is catching on. I think we're seeing it increase in European and Australian countries, but not as much in Asia. Um, and finding out what their secret is is key. Just like, when we talk about uh, the group in London, Gideon, and how they discovered prevention. It was observation. So they observed that kids in Israel had significantly less food allergies than in London, same genetic kids. And that observation led to, oh, they're eating bamba. So now I think what we need to do with the rest of the world is, okay, where is it low and what is it that they do? Whether it be their diet or their microbiome or different practices that they may lose when they move to, you know, a higher rate country. So, yeah. Sorry, I feel like I can talk about every single
That's
topic on this
okay.
forever.
I could listen all day. And on that note, what's next? What should the average person like me and everyone listening continue to do to change that here in the US to raise awareness?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I mean, I really think we should all advocate. There's a lot of amazing organizations promoting policies for better school policies, better restaurant policies, better airline policies, and I think as a community, what I'm so impressed with is the food allergy community is always bonds together, right? I remember when I first started, it was the epinephrine in schools policy. And that like took over the nation so quickly. We did some work in Chicago because a young child passed away in school who didn't have epinephrine. And then we worked with the Chicago Public Schools. We published a couple papers, and then it really took off around the country. And I think that changed things. It's still not perfect. I know there's still issues in schools, but we can get there together. And um, supporting each other to build those policies to educate people around you and your communities. I'm really concerned and working hard to make sure the underserved community has access and knowledge about food allergy prevention, about treatments. OIT, we talk a lot about it, but it's not accessible.
Right.
And
It's a privilege.
it's a privilege. And so how do we make it accessible, right? How do we not cause this equity gap to increase? But I think it's all of us doing our part. Like the more policies, we're trying to get WIC and Medicaid to pay, to offer. I mean, these foods aren't expensive. Peanut butter is not expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So adding education and adding these foods to the packages, what can we do as a community to make sure everybody has access and awareness? And there's some great support groups and foundations around food allergy that are doing so much. So I think backing everything we can. We have a conference in June, and we're going to do policy. So we're going to talk about a couple different school policies. One of them, prevention, and the WIC thing is one of them, and precautionary allergen labeling. How do we label items, which is a whole another hours. We want input from families, because all of these policies, even though I am a parent, like I should not be the one making it. Everybody has to decide, is this a good idea or not? And then everyone has to full force back it.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing on that front, because it is amazing how it's shifted, even just from when my son was diagnosed. And I will share in the notes all of your information so people can find you. Can I ask you one wrap up question?
Yes.
Tell me something great about being a food allergy mom.
Oh, a food allergy mom specifically. Gosh, I mean, I can tell you, my son who doesn't have food allergies gets very jealous of my daughter with food allergies sometimes, because I think I talk about her all the time. I think it's a privilege and an honor to um, be a mom of a amazing daughter who is just the biggest advocate for everything and everyone, and has more empathy than I could ever dream of having, and is just so caring and wonderful. And the challenges that food allergy brings, I think, make her a stronger person. And I love it. I love watching it every single day, and through all the challenges and all the guilt of everything I may have done wrong, they turn out okay, And so I'm a very proud mom for both my kids, the kid with food allergies and the one without, and watching them support each other and take care of each other is also beautiful. So that awareness for the other one. And I mean, he is the most protective brother ever. That time when that restaurant thing happened, boy, did he lose it, just to protect his sister. So yes, and I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for this amazing community that we're a part of. And I'm happy Mother's Day to all you amazing, incredible, wonderful mothers out there. And we're all in it together. So anything you ever need me for, I'm always here.
Thank you. We all appreciate you, and happy Mother's Day to you.
Thank you.
3 action steps that you can take after today's episode are: number 1, follow Dr. Gupta and all of her amazing work. Her Instagram account is Dr. Ruchi Gupta _ DRRUCHIGUPTA _ The Instagram account for the Center for Food Allergy and Asthma Research is CFAARNU. And you can easily find the website for the Center for Food Allergy and Asthma Research by going to www.feinberg.northwestern.edu/sites/CFAAR. Dr. Gupta wants everyone to know about the 2025 Food Allergy Summit that the center is hosting. And so if you are a medical professional, if you're an allied professional, if you do advocacy work, nonprofits, policymakers, researchers, industry representatives, educators, she's really eager about having people come together and continuing to find solutions. So you'll find the link to the conference, which is June 27th to 29th, 2025, on the center's website. All those links I just shared will also be in the show notes for you. Number 2, if you don't have it, I really would strongly recommend reading and owning Dr. Gupta's book, Food Without Fear. It's a great resource. It's very clearly written. Anytime something comes up that might be confusing, it's likely explained very clearly and compassionately in her book. And number 3, if hearing Dr. Gupta talk about her personal experiences in this way resonates, I hope you'll share the episode with another food allergy mom who really needs to hear it. I hope you have a wonderful Mother's Day, and I hope you get just a smidgen of relaxation in your busy weekend. Thank you, everybody, for listening. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have any questions about your own medical experience or mental health needs, please consult a professional. I'm Dr. Amanda Whitehouse. Thanks for joining me. And until we chat again, remember, don't feed the fear.